everybody, welcome to the Comic Game Movie Show. My name is Deshaun, and today I'm here to talk about the Thunderbolts. We officially got the cast for the Thunderbolts at D23. Now, while some people are upset about that casting, on top of being upset about the lack of casting for the Fantastic Four, I, for one, am interested and also mostly hyped for the Thunderbolts because they are definitely going in a different direction. Now, just to start up top, the Thunderbolt lineup will be Yelena Belova, Winter Soldier, Red Guardian, Ghost, U.S. Agent, and Taskmaster. It's a very interesting group of individuals, and if you notice something between all of them, because, well, and this is the thing, I'm going to talk about this up top. When they first even announced the Thunderbolts, everyone made the joke that it's just, Marvel's, what's the word I'm looking for? Marvel's Suicide Squad. Because there are parallels between the two. Obviously, there are parallels between the two. I mean, the Thunderbolts in the comics are literally led by Baron Zemo, who is a notorious villain. So, and even though me and you know that there's many differences between the Thunderbolts and the Suicide Squad, one of which, least of which being that the reason the Suicide Squad is called the Suicide Squad is not only because of the missions they go on, but because they got the explosives in the back of their head. And the Suicide Squad are pretty much made up of villains. There's some anti-heroes in there occasionally. But most of the Suicide Squad, but 90% of the Suicide Squad is villains. With an occasional hero / anti-hero thrown in there. Whereas for the most part, even, in its different renditions, the Thunderbolt is mostly made up of anti-heroes or reformed villains. People who used to be villains but aren't villains anymore, or anti-heroes. People who are technically heroes but do dirty work. Like the Punisher, like a Deadpool, those kind of people. People who do shit like on the fringe where they're murdering people in droves. And sure, we could have a conversation that, technically, characters like, Iron Man and Thor and whatnot, they do kill people, but it's kind of a different level of it. Whereas you always get the feeling that a Thor and an Iron Man and like the Avengers, outside of maybe Black Widow, but the Avengers themselves, even Black Widow when she is around them, that they do kill people if they have to, but they try to avoid it, and that they're so powerful that for the most part they can avoid it. If they don't have, they can avoid it, but if they got to, they'll put a motherfucker down. Whereas the Thunderbolts are the ones who are going into missions that could be considered extremely illegal. I'm talking like dirty kind of missions. For the most part, and like some people have said, the Thunderbolts has changed many times over the years. The first rendition of the Thunderbolts that Baron Zemo led had a bunch of nobodies on it, really. It was just, Zemo wasn't even Zemo. He was like some other name. It was like Citizen Z or some V or some shit. He wasn't even, we didn't even know he was Zemo if you read that comic at the time, you wouldn't even have known it was Zemo. But, so the Thunderbolts has had a really weird, creation, because eventually it does have, it is led by Ross as the Red Hulk, eventually, because the one that I remember fondly anyways, most fondly, is the one with Red Hulk, Deadpool, the Punisher, Elektra, and Agent Venom. That's the one that I remember distinctly in my brain. It's the first Thunderbolts comic I read. But once you realize, but when you look at the comics of the Thunderbolts, there is no definitive team. Not really. There are two characters who are synonymous with being in the Thunderbolts. One is Zemo, and the other is probably U.S. Agent. And then there's Red Hulk. But other than that, if you pick up a Thunderbolts comic book over the course of the last, 12, 15 years, you will see that the comic, like every comic artist and writer who works on this, it's a completely different cast, it's a completely different vibe. That's also what makes it a big difference between the Suicide Squad too, is the Suicide Squad, they're pretty much the same. It's the same type of thing. just a rotating door of, you know, different villains. Whereas the Thunderbolts, man, the Thunderbolts can change drastically depending on who's putting the group together, depending on who's the leader. They can be antagonistic. They can be pretty much good guys. So people who are up in arms over, you know, specific Thunderbolts and whatnot, that it doesn't look like the comics, calm down, because it looks different all the time. Now, there has also been a running joke going around of all these people do the same thing. And what is the definition of that, by the way? Because Shang-Chi and Captain America both fight. But would you classify Shang-Chi and Captain America as doing the same thing? You know what I mean? Like, they are different characters. And that's going to be the crux. It's not their power sets. Because so many people are upset because they're like, oh, all these guys have similar power sets. They're so samey. Well, the thing is, because people thought they were going to go huge. They thought it was going to be Zemo, it was going to be Abomination. They had these wild, you know, once again, theories. None of it confirmed. They're just these wild theories. And, you know, there's going to be the fucking people have going off on their wild falling in love with their own theories is going to be the death of the MCU. I'm telling you, I feel like that's going to be the true death of the MCU. Is people falling in love with their own theories, and then when it's not what they thought it was going to be, they're like, well, I don't want it. It's like, fuck, here we go. But even anyways, like, this seems like to me, they're not going for a Suicide Squad. They're not even going for Dark Avengers. This is a covert ops unit that is under the command of a shady woman in Valentina that will go into places that they're not supposed to be. And that's the vibe I get off this team, is that this is a covert ops team. These are all people, every one of them, who specialize and who are most of them anyways, are either assassins or former soldiers. The only member of this group who isn't an assassin or a former soldier is Ghost. But Ghost has a unique ability to phase through matter itself. And when you look at this group and you really start piecing together the formation of it, you start kind of understanding that it's like, oh, this is less superhero and more like, I don't know, like Tom Clancy-esque. Or, you know, just like a super military group. It's like, we picked each of you to be able to pull off this covert mission. This isn't like I said, this isn't the Avengers. This isn't in broad daylight. This isn't over-the-top bombastic, which also makes me think that the villain isn't going to be over the top too. Actually, I think that the villain of this movie will be Baron Zemo. I do. I think that because when you have characters like this, it makes me think, okay, the villain isn't going to be over the top. So this is going to be a more Winter Soldier-esque. It's going to be like a more, like I said, it's going to be a less fantastical version of the Avengers. It's going to be more Dirty Dozens. It's going to be more, we put this special unit together to go take out this motherfucker in this area. We're not supposed to be in this area. That's why we're sending you guys in, because you have unique skill sets. And of course, it is going to be fun and interesting to see certain characters bounce off of each other. I, for one, am one of the people, there's not a lot, who actually liked Ghost in Ant-Man and the Wasp. I thought she was a fascinating character. And I actually thought she's probably one of the most sympathetic villains in any superhero movie. I mean, the girl was literally being torn apart from the inside out every day. I mean, you imagine being in that kind of pain, you might do some shit too to make it stop. So she had a actual good reason to be doing the shit she was doing. And at the end of the day, she was a victim. At the end of the day, she was a victim of circumstance that drove her to be in what she was. And the thing that makes it interesting to me too, that makes me think this, you know, that the covert ops thing is all these people are former villains or, you know, bad people turned good. All of them, actually, if you want to be technical, outside of maybe Red Guardian, but you know, depends on how you look at that. Ghost was a villain in Ant-Man. Obviously, Bucky the Winter Soldier in Winter Soldier. You know, literally, fucking Taskmaster was just the villain in goddamn Black Widow. And by the way, I know some people are upset, very upset about the Taskmaster thing. Now, I have already talked about it. I said I thought they could have done a better job. I had no problem with them making Taskmaster a female, no issue whatsoever. I didn't even have a problem with the twist that she was Dracov's daughter. I didn't mind it. I thought it was kind of cool. I did wish that there was more to, like, I wish we got to see her be badass more. Because I was hoping that the Taskmaster, because like every time they showed something, it was kind of cool. And I think that the final fight with her and Black Widow should have been more epic. It should have been a more epic hand-to-hand combatant thing. But it wasn't. It was just kind of over. And I just thought that they could have handled it better. They could have handled it better. But no. No. They're not gonna just rip out. First of all, everyone who says rip the technology out of the back of her head and just plug it into somebody else didn't watch the movie. You can't just do that. First of all, if you took it out of her, she would die. Second of all, I don't know, like I said, a lot of people missed this part in the Black Widow movie because they were too busy bitching about feminism or some bullshit. It's not the technology itself. Her and the technology allows her to do this. Otherwise, why wouldn't Dreykov just give all the Black Widows that same technology? You get me here? The technology and her have like got something going on where she's able to mimic other people's abilities. Like, do you guys just think that they just forgot? Like, do you guys think that if he could have given all of his Black Widows the ability to just mimic people and be as good as her, he wouldn't have? No. It turns out that for some reason, because he created the technology wasn't created for her to be able to do what she did. Like, because after the explosion, which by the way, I know some people shit on Black Widow, but that whole her putting a bomb in the bag of a little girl and sending her as a Trojan horse to kill her own father thing is one of the darkest things I've ever seen in the MCU. It's kind of one of those things that's kind of just like brushed over, but I'm like, that's real fucking dark, dude. That's dark. I'm like, damn. But anyways, the explosion fucked her up. To the point where she couldn't function normally. She couldn't move her arms and limbs, normally. So clearly she had like some kind of spinal damage. So the technology was to help her be able to move and shit. But for some unknown reason, it did more than just give her the ability to move and shit. It allowed her to mimic and copy other people's movements precisely. But they don't know why. So no, they can't just rip the technology out of her and plug it into some white dude. No, they can't do that because it wouldn't work the same because no one knows. And even in the movie, there's no real explanation for why it worked the way it did for her. Because if he could just replicate it, he would have just given it to all the other Black Widows. By the way, one of the benefits of having a cinematic universe is that you can correct mistakes. So I would not be surprised if she starts becoming more and more Taskmaster, comic book Taskmaster-like, except she's a woman, but I wouldn't be surprised if the costume starts looking a little bit more comic book Taskmaster-y. I wouldn't be surprised if her demeanor and the way she talks, because we haven't really seen her talk, we haven't really seen a personality, if it starts to feel like a female version of Masters from the comics. Like, I would not be surprised. Don't be. If by the time she shows up in the Thunderbolts, she's essentially just a female version of comic book Taskmaster. It is an easy fix. As long as the character is still alive, you can always fix things. That's why some people get so angry when characters die, because it's like, well, then that's it. That's the definitive version of that character. But she's still alive, so they can obviously fix some odd mistakes, some things that they did do wrong in the movie. But no, they're not going to just take the technology out of her and give it to someone else. But anyways, I'm excited for this team. I'm excited for this because it feels like I'm waiting to see who the villain is. And I have a feeling that the villain will be Baron Zemo. Comment below and let me know. Anyways, thank you guys for joining the Comedy Movie Show. What do you think of the Thunderbolts cast? Who do you think will be the villain? And do you think Zemo's going to be in it? Or maybe they're holding back? Who knows? Let me know. Comment below and let me know. I'll see you guys on the next one. Did I say please remember to like, subscribe? Please remember to like, subscribe. Thank you.